Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today we have Katie Featherston on the show. She's an actress. You might recognize her from Paranormal Activity, that franchise. She's also co-host of her own podcast called A to Z with Clint and Katie. And she's also in graduate school right now, getting her degree in clinical psychology. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Oh, I'm so excited because you are successful, you're beautiful, you're smart.
Thanks.
And we're going to talk about dating and relationships.
I'm into it. Let's do it.
It's such a fun topic, isn't it?
It is. It's one I've thought about and been kind of like immersed in different ways for years and years, and especially as you get older and people pair up, then suddenly I look at it in a different way, and I'm thinking about it more when maybe in my 20s I didn't think about it as much, and especially now to be in a place where I feel really so in love and so settled in who I am and with the person that I'm with. It's a fun thing to think about in a new way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you have met someone wonderful.
I have.
Your boo, Joe, your partner.
He's the best.
I can tell from your Instagram post. Yeah. I really like seeing it because I think I can tell by body language, and I think it's a good sign when your nervous system is calm.
Yeah.
It's so annoying when people say, when you know. But I think it's that calm feeling where I feel like I know when I see your photo. This guy's different. He's special.
I've always said the right guy. I don't know who said this to me, but it's been in my head. Like, the right guy won't make you wonder.
Yeah.
And Joe, even in our rough moments, I've never wondered about the kind of person he is. And I've never even, I mean, even in moments where I'm like, are we going to make it through this? There's something deep in my gut that's like, yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. I don't always know how we're going to navigate things, but I just know that we are. And he's never made me wonder,
So you feel safe with him?
Oh, really safe. Yeah.
Was that important to you when you were dating? Did you actively look for that in a partner?
I didn't always look for it, but I think at some point I realized it was something that I deeply needed. Our mutual friend Jess once said to me that she said, "You're eventually going to find someone who's so good and so caring with your feelings." And I think that's what makes me feel safe. A lot of things make me feel safe in a relationship, but I think that's something that I was missing a lot in my life, and that I needed in a partner in order to really feel safe to open up and show up. And hence the name of the podcast. But he's very careful and loving and generous, and very okay with feelings.
That is so refreshing.
It really is.
Especially, my experience from most men growing up is, it's because of the way that they're brought up. So I totally understand. And I can 100%. Be like that too. So
Me too, because I was raised by a strong Texan father who was very buttoned up and didn't feel his feelings. And, he was doing his best, and he imparted that on me. And, but to find a man who for the record, by the way, I have a disclaimer. Our dog passed away a few days ago. So if I burst into tears, it's definitely about the dog and not about my current relationship status, of which I'm very happy. But we grieved our dog together. And he wasn't just, it was my dog for 10 years, and then it was our dog for the past 2 years. He certainly has been taking care of me, but he didn't just hold me while I was crying. We cried together over this animal that we loved, and he was right there in it with me, with that empathy that can be hard for men. It can be hard for anyone, but I'm really grateful to have a partner who's like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think an animal or a pet will do that to you. Oof. It's so painful. I've experienced it once before, and I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
It your world just is crushed. Yeah. And I'm so sorry, because I know what that feels like, and I know it just happened. Yeah. So you just ride the waves, and it takes time, right?
Exactly. Just let it unfold. Yeah.
Can we talk about, because you said you didn't always choose the safe guy or go after the safe guy?
Yeah.
What dating was like before you met Joe?
In my 20s, I don't think I really paid attention to dating, and it wasn't a focus. I was so excited to be an actress. I had so many friends. My life was so full. that was never kind of in the forefront. And also, I think I was kind of raised I think I was sort of raised unintentionally to be independent and on my own and to not allow a guy in for different reasons. So that kind of informed my 20s. But then, in my very late 20s, I remember when I turned 30, I was like, wait a minute, I'm 30 and I'm very single. I need a husband, I guess, because that's what everybody does. And it wasn't that I needed a husband in that moment, but I realized like, oh, I have some work. So I was dating this great guy, really, really emotionally available, good dude. His name was Ian. And I had to break up with him because I was like, I cannot show up for you the way you're showing up for me. I'm too uncomfortable with it. You're a really good man. You're showing me how I want to be treated, but I can't take it in. And I broke up with him, and I was like deep dived into like, why can't I? Why am I 30 years old and I can't accept this like love and respect and being cherished by a man? Why is that level of intimacy uncomfortable for me? And so I did in my 30s what I think maybe women more so do in their 20s, which is like date all the bad guys and kind of worked all that stuff out on these. And I had a couple of relationships sort of, but really it was like 5 dates over here, 1 date over here, projecting all this stuff on this guy and getting my heart broken over here. Like it was all of that messiness, kind of like sandwiched with therapy and really just taking a look at what that was. And so I dated a lot of guys who just couldn't show up for me, and part of that was like, I didn't really want them to because I really wanted to work this stuff out. Yeah. At the time, I wasn't conscious of that. Every guy was like, well, this is the guy. I've done it. I've worked for 6 months. I'm healed. Let's go. But in hindsight, like looking back, it's like I really needed those guys to not work out because they really weren't the right thing. I had to like learn to love myself before I could really be loved. Like that's really what was happening. But it was just like this compact 7 years of just being in that for so long. So it was intense.
Oh, it's a very similar story.
Yeah.
I think it was about 6 years for me, like choosing the unavailable guys, but there was some safety in that for me,
sure.
right? Like, and it would freak me out if someone did, or I would say I'm not attracted to this guy if he actually chose me.
Because there were some good guys along the way, and I can look back and think like, oh, dude, I broke that guy's heart, and oh, wow, I never gave that one a chance. And I was like, well, why didn't I? Oh, because they were emotionally open and available, and were they the right guy for me? Probably not. Joe's the right guy for me, but could they have been a good relationship in that moment? Probably, but I couldn't allow those guys to get too close. And I on some level I knew I had like this kind of a space. I had this little wall here, and I would let the guy cross past the friend zone into this kind of question mark zone, which gave me sort of a level of intimacy that felt good. Those poor guys were never going to get past my wall, and I feel I send them all love, and then they would be here for a while until they would try to really make something real, and then I'd be like, well, we've got to move on, and so sorry to them. They, that was tough.
It's hard to hurt someone's feelings,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, when it's true, we experience both. Sometimes I think we get caught up in that, like no one likes me back, no one's choosing me back. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure that there's people who actually like you who you're rejecting too, but you're focusing on just this one side, right? Yeah. And sometimes it is harder. I remember I had a really lovely boyfriend in my 20s, and I could not break up with him because he was just a great guy and he didn't do anything wrong. I felt so guilty, and it dragged on for like 3 years, and he actually finally did it. It was to that point. Now, like, I know how to do that, but it is very hard to see that, to upset someone.
Yeah, and also if looking back like that kind of semi-closeness served me. Like it filled something up, and I mean, I wasn't even dating these guys. I just emotionally knew that on some level they were into me, and I would enjoy their presence because they were good guys, but I couldn't let them in any further, and so there would just be kind of this gray zone for a while. And but man, I sure did project all the stuff onto the bad ones, not the bad ones, but the less desirable ones, and I had to do that for a while.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
So what came up in therapy when you were doing therapy? Like, what were the walls that you had built up and why?
I think I had to learn how to show up authentically in relationships, and that's the messy parts. It's the part that might cry over my dog in this interview. It's like the messy parts and the put together parts. I think I was, raised. This is all you can go to therapy. All you do is talk about your parents. I, for the record, have great parents, but every relationship has its strengths and its weaknesses. And growing up, I was kind of a golden child for both of my parents. My parents were divorced, so separately, I was a golden child for both of them. And on my mom's side, she always really kind of like, there was like this admiration that I didn't date a lot because like somehow I was above that, And I thought, oh, I guess dating is like a silly thing you shouldn't do. And then on my dad's side, I was, not allowed to cry, and I was, it was very emotionally there's a very small box I was allowed to live in. Did he intend to do that? No. Does he love me with his whole heart? Yes. But he's the first male relationship I have. And if I'm not allowed to be vulnerable or cry in front of you, how am I going to do that in an adult relationship? I'm not. I'm going to just be alone because I can cry with myself, And so all of that stuff came up, and kind of navigating it. Plus, my parents were divorced. They divorced when I was a baby. So I don't have any like divorce trauma of like having parents together and then watching that fall apart. But I do, I think I always had this kind of undercurrent of, if you're going to do it right. Like, don't mess it up. So there was this pressure, even as a young person, like elementary school or junior high or high school, of like, if you're gonna date someone, you have to know that it's gonna be a really long-lasting thing. And then I became an adult, and it was like, you've got to know it's going to be forever. Well, you can't know, like you can't. I'm allowed to go on a date and know that I'm never going to see that guy again. That's a thing that's allowed. And I didn't give myself that permission until my 30s, So in my 20s, it was like, I can only go on a date with you if I really think we're going to be a good relationship and we're going to last a long time. It's like, that's so much pressure,
It is.
So all of that stuff came up, and unwinding it and letting it go and unpacking it. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think for successful people who seem very put together,
Yeah.
we all kind of have that, like, put that pressure on ourselves, but then it also puts pressure on the other person as well.
Super unfair. Yeah.
Unintentionally. But that perfectionism, or like, I'm going to get this right.
Yeah.
Fear of failure.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I still have that.
Yeah.
And I used to think that I've done all the work, and I'm like, oh no, like, divorce it is what it is. And I don't judge other people for it. And I thought I didn't have it for myself, but recently I'm like, I do have a fear of divorce, because to me it means, well, I'm making it mean failure, and so it's forever work in progress. Right?
That's the other thing is like, I'm in a great relationship now, and now the real work starts on a different level because now I'm in a relationship with someone else, and so all of my stuff comes up and all of his stuff comes up, and so it's like you never finish the puzzle. We're always like peeling back those layers if we choose to, and I'm one of those people that always chooses to. So
yeah, well, you're getting your degree in clinical psychology.
It's so fun.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What a useful skill and things to know.
I'm really excited about it. It feels similar to the tools I use as an actress, just applied in a different way. Like, can you be present with someone in big feelings? Are you curious? Do you care about why someone is the way they are? And all of these kind of tools just, applied on another person as opposed to a character I'm trying to embody, so it's fun. Yeah.
When you were dating, were you on the dating apps?
I did for a little while, off and on. I felt like I was in my 30s when they became popular, and so I felt like I was too old for them. Like, I didn't come up with them, but I did, and I have many funny stories. My mindset around dating apps were always like, I never wanted to meet someone on a dating app, even though I have friends who are married with babies, I think just because I came up in that time where you meet somebody in the world, that was how it happened. And now it's like, well, no, people just meet on apps all the time. But I was kind of in that middle ground. But I did it off and on. I only did it if it felt fun. The second it started to feel like work, or the second I started to feel like resentful about it, I would just shut it down.
Oh, good for you.
You know?
That's usually what I recommend.
Yeah, it's because it's a different kind of, like looking at those, pages or whatever, or writing your own. It's like, this is like a dating resume or something. It's like, here I am in one page. Let me know if I get the audition. It's like very cold in that way. And I can know like in 10 minutes with someone, like energetically. I can't tell you if they're what kind of yes they are, but I can tell you if they're a yes or if they're a no. Like, that's all I need. So many times I would go into a date, I could see the guy walking up and I'm like, no. And it wasn't me being closed off. It was me being like, he is walking into this date, his shoulders are hunched, he is not owning himself. I'm like, bless him, but that's not my person, And then, so it's it was a lot of work. But I had some good experiences too. Certainly some funny ones.
Can you share one funny story that you had?
Oh man. I went on a date with a man who told me he invented speed dating. So he was a little bit older than me. He was British. He was handsome. And we go to this. I meet him over the hill at this bar. And I walk in and I see this bartender is a girl who I knew from like a decade prior. And she was like, oh my God, Katie, hi, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. And she's like, oh, you're on a date, okay. And then, he and I start talking and he's like interviewing me, like straight up interviewing me. And immediately I'm like, this is not going to go. But we both have drinks. I'm going to finish my drink. I'm not going to walk out, in the middle of the date. And so he tells me he invented speed dating. And I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. He goes to the bathroom and then the bartender who I knew comes over and she's like, Katie, he's in here every night with a different girl. And I was like, this is not my life. Like, this is not where I need to be right now. What is happening? So he comes back and I'm still intending to finish the drink and then peace out. He comes back and he's like, well, you can really know in like 15 minutes. And he's like, can I get the check? And like, gets the check mid-drink and is ending the date. And I'm like, you're ending the date? You are going to end this date before you are going to end our date before we're done with our first round? Oh, I wanted to leave like it was, there were a lot of stories, but I will never forget speed dater guy. Don't remember his name, but whoever it was that invented speed dating. If in fact he did.
I was going to say, how do you know if he did or he didn't?
Yeah, never. No, there's no way to know. There's no way to know.
It's so funny. That's part of the process. Yeah. Like, you can't expect every single date to be like pretty good, right? You need both ends of the spectrum, right?
And that's the thing about dating, I think, is that I didn't know or I didn't embrace when I was younger, is that, the funny stories, but dating is really like putting yourself out there, learning how to be vulnerable, learning how you interact in the world, learning what you like and what you don't like, learning how you treat people and how you wish you treated them differently, like all the back and the forth of it, that like preps you for choosing a person and getting into the real meat of having a relationship. And so it's to me, I think, super valuable. Like, when I have kids, I'm going to be like, yeah, go on dates, like have, integrity and self-respect. And if you want out, you don't have to wait till the end of the drink, get out, but go experience life, like try it. And then when you find somebody, whether it's for 6 months or a year or forever, like, you'll know. You won't be projecting ideas of something. You'll know because you will have experienced the good and the bad,
When you said that you are intuitive and you can tell whether someone was going to be a fit or not, whether you wanted to get to know them or not.
Yeah.
I think you are a very intuitive person, and then you were raised in an overall pretty healthy way that you could see things like that. Mm-hmm. What do you think about people who, because we all subconsciously might model off what's familiar or something like that, and there's some people who tend to attract like narcissists or something like that. So they might see someone in a way and they are attracted to that, but it's not good for them. What advice would you give to them?
Go find a therapist. For everyone, really. I mean, who's to say I'm not doing that? Like there are, I think we all do that. I mean, we're looking for what feels like love to us. So the only thing we can do is hope that our definition and work to make our definition of what is loving the healthiest version that it is. You know, I would say to myself and to friends, like, in that kind of time when I was dating a bunch of guys who like would kind of like blow me off after a time, or they just wouldn't show up, or they weren't treating me well. There's all sorts of stuff. And I would be like, I'm the common denominator here. Like, I'm not saying I'm bad, but the one thing that links all of these experiences together is me. So what am I? And it took me time to like figure out what I was doing. But if you're having a string of experiences, then it's not about you being bad or anything. It's about, do you want to take a look at how those experiences on some level are still serving you, and work to like move past that to find something that's more fulfilling? And go get a therapist. Or friends who will be kind to you, but who will tell you the truth, or a slew of books you could read, or time in nature, or meditation, or some sort of journaling. I mean, I journal like an insane person, like I can't stop, but any kind of space where you can have self-reflection is what I would say.
Yeah. Do you have tips? Because it sounded like you kind of had a rhythm with your dating. Like, any tips on how to date well?
How to date well. I don't know if I've ever dated well. I think I've always tried to have fun with it. And I think that's it. Like, it takes effort, but it shouldn't be work, I don't think. Relationships, there's work involved, but they're also so amazing. It's the best kind of work. But dating, I think, should be fun. I think it should be fun, so have it be fun. And if it's not, take a break. Like, you don't have to always be, I certainly didn't always have to be on a date. Like do things you like to do, have friends, have your life be, same with acting. Like, you're a better actor if you have things outside of acting. So when you show up in the audition room, you have a full life that you're bringing in. You're not just a shell of an actor who's like trying to get the job. It's like same with dating. Like, live a full life, and then either when you want to get on the apps and try it out, great, or if one comes up naturally, great. You're bringing your whole life, and there's not as much pressure on it.
So at what point did it start to change that you would stop choosing the emotionally unavailable, or just unavailable guys?
I think it was a slow process. I do remember the last guy I dated who didn't treat me super great. And then there was about a year where I didn't date very much, and I dated a gentleman who was younger than me, so I knew, he wasn't unavailable, but I knew that this was never going to work in the long run, because he was like 7 years younger than me. And for me, it just wasn't, that was not going to be a fit. But he was a deeply good human being, and he treated me incredibly well. He was fine with the age thing, and I was like, you are for now. But he was so good to me. He reminded me, I think, of what it felt like to be treated well by a man, because I hadn't had that since I was 30 with Ian, right? So now I'm dating this younger man. So there's kind of like some safety in that, because I know it's not going to last forever. But he really showed me and reminded me what it was to be treated well. So then when we broke up, some time passed, the pandemic started, and then Joe came into my life. It was like, oh yeah, this way you're treating me, like, this is how I should be treated. Like, this level of love and care and respect, and, not making me wonder, this sense of security, even as we're like figuring out our stuff, like, it gave me the right barometer. So it had been a few years, but there was also some time of me being alone in there too, of just being like, I'm done with that stuff. So I'd rather be on my own. And there was also this moment, I don't remember when it was, but when I stopped needing it. And everybody says this, and it would be so frustrating when I did need it, because I was like, well, how do you not need the thing you need, But there was a time where I was like, I want to meet somebody at some point, but I'm happy, and I don't need this in the same way that I felt like I did before. And there's some like letting go in that. And I think that letting go allows there to be more space to explore when you're putting less pressure on things.
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
is a good feeling. And you're absolutely right. It's another one of those annoying things that people say,
Yeah.
but it's true.
Yeah.
And that's where I was too, where I was okay. I felt okay with or without.
Yeah.
I hope to. Like,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if I did, but I didn't have that desperation
Yeah.
anymore. Like, it leaves space to build like a healthy relationship.
Yeah. You're not putting so much pressure on it, and there's still a want there, or a desire there, but a desire is different than a need. A need's very, holding on tight, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you recommend that women look for in a good guy? It might sound like a very obvious question, but what are some like green flags that like they do or say or how they show up that are good signs?
I mean, for me, kindness, like and it's different for everyone, I think. I mean, I can only speak for myself. Kindness, both to me, but also to others. Like, how does this person treat people in his world? Both his, employer and the guy who's, taking the plates off of our table at a restaurant. Like, how does he exist in the world? Is he honest? I think qualities like that are important. Also, if you're going to be in for me, I have to be laughing. Like, that's, also I think the thing most people would say, but is this someone who we share a similar sense of humor? We can enjoy each other's company. Like, I have to like the person, as I can't just be attracted to them. I have to also like who they are, like, and I can't, like, sometimes I look at Joe and because this is the first truly long-term relationship. He was married before he was married for a decade, so he's had different experiences. But for me, this is the first long-term relationship I've ever had. The first time second time I've lived with a guy, but the first time I've ever lived with a man for this long and shared a life with someone. And I'm like, babe, we have spent he works from home, I work from home. I'm like, we have spent every minute together for days, and I still like you. Like, I genuinely like being around him. And also I'm in love with him and attracted to him, but there's all of those components. So look for someone you like and who exists in the world in a way that I always said at some point, I was like, I want to find someone whose light shines as bright as mine. So I would say that, like, look for someone whose light shines as bright as yours.
Yeah, I love that. What about respect?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that sounds really obvious, and the kindness too. It's such an underrated like quality, but someone who's kind, because most people are like, duh, obvious, but I'm like, there are a lot of people who are not kind. The respect too, if you're going for healthy and long term,
Yeah.
mutual respect.
I couldn't imagine Joe being disrespectful of me. He is so respectful. I don't even know what that would look like, and I also don't know if that's something I ever really. I never tolerated that in a relationship. I tolerated that in the world of dating, but I never tolerated disrespect once I was in. I would be like out so fast, So yeah, for sure, respect. There's a lot, There's a lot of things you need. You need someone who can, and also just not make you wonder. If you're back to the drawing board and calling your girlfriends all the time, saying the same stuff about, he doesn't call and the whatever the stuff is. Like, if he's making you wonder, then you probably should be wondering,
Yeah, like you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know and you'll feel safe. You'll both know, actually, when it's a good fit.
Yeah.
And I felt similar when I met Pete. I felt like he was my future husband from like really early on. And we joke and say, my friends would be like, your husband. And I was like, yeah, I think that is my husband.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
It really is.
So now that you are with Joe, is this considered a pandemic relationship?
I
You
guess
met
so.
kind of
I mean,
at the beginning of the pandemic?
we've known each other for years through mutual friend groups, and so I knew him, and I knew him to be a good person, and we have similar friends and whatnot, but I didn't know him individually until the pandemic. And so the pandemic started, and we're like on I sign up for Marco Polo, the little video app. And I see, he's like, Joe, be friends with Joe. I was like, oh yeah. And we had seen each other at a Christmas party right before the pandemic and had a nice talk, and it was fun. But that was that. And then I just said hi to him on Marco Polo, and we started, chatting every day. And then he's a writer, I'm a songwriter. And so we started writing songs together because we were, trapped in our houses and bored. And we did an entire pandemic album, 12 songs. And then at some point we were just talking every day on Marco Polo back and forth for hours. And then at some point I was like, man, I like this guy. He needs to ask me out. And then he did.
Oh, awesome. I was about to say, you're recording songs together. I mean, that's already pretty intimate.
We had this, one of my favorite musicians has this thing called a song game where you have a phrase and he sends it out to all of his songwriter friends, and all the songwriter friends have to write a song that includes that phrase, and they have a deadline. So Joe and I did that. Like, one of us would come up with a phrase and we'd each go off, write a song with that phrase, and then come back at the end of the week and we'd like send it to each other or sing it on Marco Polo and send it over. And so I have 6 songs and he has 6 songs, and all of them have the similar phrases in them. And then one of them I actually recorded and put out on iTunes. But most of them are just for Joe and I, works in progress.
It's really cute.
It's fun.
I mean, when you were doing that, did it cross your mind while you're sending each other songs? Like, I kind of like this guy?
Yes. It also, I think, for me, but I was always a little bit ahead of him. But for me, the pandemic and the fact that we couldn't see each other, it was 80 days before we had our first date. So it was 80 days of like video pen paling. That's a lot of time to talk and get to know someone. But there was no pressure of a date. There was no pressure of real world. It was just like, I'm just getting to know this person. So that, what we talked about earlier about not putting a lot of pressure, not holding on, it just was what it was. We were in the pandemic. We thought in a few weeks or in a month or two, we'll be out of this. And so it allowed there to be space for both of us, I think, to just really be open with each other and then realize, like, oh, man, this guy's really cute and really fun, and he should ask me out. But yeah, that was always in the back of my head as this was going on. I was like, this is a lot of time to be – I have other friends on Marco Polo. I'm not talking to them that much,
I like this guy.
This guy is pretty great.
How did he ask you out?
He'd driven to Texas, and there were some mutual friends of ours who decided to quarantine at a lake house for a while. So he was there for a couple of weeks, and he sent me a 12-point bulleted text message of all of these things of his time in, because I'm from Texas and he was in Texas, and like the thunderstorm that was happening in Texas, and how he thinks I'm so pretty, and he's excited to come back, and all of these different things. And at the very end, he was like, "And I really want to go on a date with you when we come back." And I was like, "Oh my God!" That was very sweet. It was very well written as a writer, very clever and romantic, and yeah.
So cute. And then what was your first date, your first meeting in person?
Our pandemic first date?
Yeah.
It was on my patio / my living room. It's kind of fun because we've really been able to extend this early time of dating in an interesting way, because the first 6 months of our dating was either my house or his. And he's a great cook, which was nice. So it was just dinners and us talking, and us hanging out in person and meeting our dog and our cats. At the time, my dog and my cats. And then as the world started to open up, then we were hanging out with friends and going to a movie. It was like, oh my God, this is the first movie we've ever seen together. And it was 8 months into our relationship or whatever, I remember the first time we went to a friend's birthday party. We'd been dating for months, but nobody had seen us together. And we showed up, and it felt for a moment like some sort of like engagement party for dating, because everybody was like, oh my God, we're so happy for you. And they're like kissing both of us. And it was like, I guess we just like came out to the world here. It's like, it was really sweet. We've done things in a strange order, but it's been really fun.
Did any of your mutual friends ever try to hook you up beforehand?
Yeah.
Before you met?
He had a few friends say, like, you should be dating Katie Featherston. Like, what's going on here? And there were people who saw us at the Christmas party talking for like 3 hours, being like, what's going on here? And then I had a friend who was like, separately, who we ran into Joe at a film festival thing, and she was like, he's so cute. Like, why aren't you dating him? And I was like, I don't know if I'm really his vibe. Like, he was kind of like at that time he was newly single, and he'd always been very kind as a married man, but as a single guy, he wasn't as warm to me. And I was like, I don't think I'm his type. She's like, he's cute, he's my type, So there were definitely like people who saw that as a good match, but we needed to find our way there. So then we did.
I love love stories.
I know, me too.
I'm always drawn to them. Since you've been in this long-term relationship, what have you learned? about yourself?
Gosh. I feel like I'm continually learning. I think I'm learning how to use my voice. I'm learning how to show up authentically in a relationship on an even deeper level. Really allowing myself to be seen. Really trusting. Really allowing Joe to take care of me and giving him the keys of like, I'm giving you my heart on, and then it's like on a deeper level of that vulnerability, because he's through all the walls for sure, but then these deeper walls of, am I gonna trust you really deeply, like in a forever kind of way? I've never done that before. I've never had to. I've never, so learning how to do that in a way that feels kind to my heart because it's new, but also like Joe is deserving of that. Like it would be disrespectful to Joe for me to not take those emotional steps, because he's there. And so I think learning that process of like also just how to have a fight. Like I did not fight growing up. No one yelled. Well, my dad yelled, but like no one was allowed to have arguments. And I certainly was not allowed to have arguments. And so if we have an argument, does that mean it's over? No. Actually, no. It's kind of great. You can have, like, and in the beginning, we also have a couples therapist, which is, like, he's never been to therapy in his life. And he's like, do you want to have a couples therapist? I was like, yes. Have I ever loved you anymore? No. So we go to therapy. And, like, in the beginning, I can't even remember what they were now, but we had to have like code words because I couldn't say, I'm really pissed off at you right now. This is really whatever. I had to have like a code word and he'd be like, okay, cool. And so now we don't need the code words in the same way, but just like navigating those kinds of things of what is it to have a fight? We fight really well. Like we're very loving. But like, how do I use my voice in a fight? How do we repair a fight? How do, all of these kinds of like things that you either learn in earlier relationships or you learn for the first time with the guy you are madly in love with.
Yeah. Oh, we're the same because that's
Yeah.
me. And Pete and I we start counseling for the first time tomorrow.
Wow.
And I'm so excited because all our married friends, they love going to counseling. And I all hear the same thing that like things will come up where it's like, maybe she'll do something in the first year that was just never addressed. And she had no idea that impacted how he saw their relationship. And so I'm like, what's going to come up between us? Because overall things are like healthy. There's nothing wrong, right? But I think the main thing between P and I, he always is like, it's fine. It's fine. And I'm always like, is it fine though? Mm-hmm. But maybe he is and maybe I'm the more complicated one. Who knows? But I'm all for like therapy and counseling.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, like, I wasn't taught how to navigate a fight, how to repair. So I tend to get resentful because I hold on to things. Or I would think if I would fight with someone, like the friendship's over or something like that, I wouldn't know how to go there with intimacy.
Right.
I was so uncomfortable with it. So
yeah,
I'm excited. And I love that Joe is into therapy. Like, he's the one that suggested it.
Yeah, it was, we were in a time where we were kind of navigating. We have some different issues that we kind of like navigate throughout our relationship and very well, I think. It was funny because I had been thinking like, oh, I think I want us to go to couples therapy. How do I even bring that up? How do I say that? How do I do it? And then before I could even try, he was the one that brought it up and has been like really like present and vulnerable. And I've been in therapy a lot longer, so I get in there and I'm like going, and sometimes he's like, Katie, like I need you to like know that this is my 10th session. You've been doing it for 10 years. I've been doing it 10 times. Like so even in that we're like communicating about how to be supportive of each other, and it's pretty great.
Oh, I love it. And I love how you said you're learning how to use your voice, because that's something I need to learn too. I think I can be really mean, like not intentionally, but it's just very direct and unfiltered, not considering how it might make someone else feel. Yeah. And I'd like to consider that. So I'm looking forward to being coached and learning something.
That's awesome. I think on my end, it's expressing my needs and my feelings as opposed to trying to fix them internally and not cause an issue, right? So how do I, like, I'm 50% of this relationship, so I have to be able to show up and say what I need, as opposed to just like trying to make things okay, which doesn't work. And he's always like, what part of our path from on my end has been, if something's up, what can I shorten the time from when it happens to when I talk about it?
Yes.
Before it was like 2 weeks, and then it's like a week, and now maybe it's a couple of days, but I say, hey babe, I'm working through something. I love you. I'm going to be a little distant. It's not you. I just need time. And so I talk about it. If I can't say it right away, I let him know, which he really appreciates. And then sometimes it's like, hey, an hour ago this happened, and now we got to talk about it. So it's like it's getting shorter.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's something that I started learning how to do when dating, because I wanted to fix it by myself too. I didn't want them to see,
Right.
or I'm like, this is not them, this is a me.
Right.
But you're not building intimacy that way. They had no idea what's going on.
Right.
They're probably like, she's just acting like she has a wall up and I can't connect with this woman, which several of them said to me, and so the thing to do is when the thing comes up is it's that dance too of like, you want to lean in, but how do you deliver it in a way that's healthy?
Yes. Are you responding, or are you being reactive? And also, like, when things are hard, both Joe says this and my therapist, but can someone show up with an energy of curiosity as opposed to defensiveness? Can I say, this really makes me, I feel very sad about this. I'm frustrated by this. Help me understand why this happened this way, as opposed to, I feel sad and I feel frustrated. How dare you? Like the difference in that, I'm expressing my feelings in both situations, but one is like inviting intimacy and one is condemning the other, which really, who would want to show up and be vulnerable when that's what's coming at them? So It's fascinating. It's so fascinating.
So my last question is, for all those independent single women out there who are looking to create the relationship of their dreams, what piece of advice would you give them?
I hate that I'm going to say this because I would have hated to hear it, but really I think it comes back to what we talked about really learning the best way of loving yourself and having a full life outside of having a relationship, of noticing the spaces in your life where there is an abundance of love, or there is whatever it is this person's looking for. Where do you already have it in your life? Where do you have trust? Where do you have safety? Where do you have laughter? Where do you have respect? And nurturing those both in yourself and in the people or things or places that create that for you. And because that spotlight effect, what you focus on gets bigger, right? So if I'm focusing on, God, I don't have anyone, then that's what's going to be reflected back to me. But if I'm focusing on, wow, my life is so full of love, and look at all these people who respect me and who make me laugh, and look at all this joy I have in my day, that's the energy with which you're going to be leading your life, and you're going to be, I think, more able to attract someone who's also vibrating at that level.
Yes, I love that. That's a fantastic piece of advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with dating. You gave so many great nuggets to help women, because it's when you're going through it, it's hard, right? Like it's when you're out of it, it's clear to see like, oh, okay, it's actually really simple, but when you're going through it, man, those emotions it's tough.
And I will say that I look back at those years, they were hard, and I give that version of me a hug, but thank God that I didn't settle for one of those dudes, because my relationship with Joe is such a gift, and I'm so grateful for him and for myself in the relationship, for who we are together. And like that, I wouldn't have Joe if I hadn't gone through all of that, So like, if you can just get through that part, and there really is a great experience in the other side of it, I think.
And I think it's such a bonus too when you go through all that. You're learning so much so that you're more clear, so you actually choose better.
Yeah.
Because I do think back on, I'm like, what if I married one of the guys like I did in my 20s or early 30s? Like, it wouldn't have been a good choice.
No way.
Right? No. So I think it's great to date. And like in your 40s too, I'm like, I know so much more about myself now than I did
for sure
back then. So I think it's a great thing. Awesome. So if people would like to learn more about you or reach out to you, where's the best place they could do that?
They can find me on Instagram at Real Katie Featherston, or they can also follow me on, from my podcast at Katie and Clint. But on my Instagram, you'll get storytelling stuff, songwriting stuff, podcast stuff, another podcast of which I can't say much, but it's coming out in the next handful of months or so. So check me out at Instagram, and I'll keep everybody updated.